Hello, my name is Eric Putkonen. Thank you for joining me. Today's topic is no mind and ceasing to think. I think one of the best pointers and explanations of no mind was in the movie The Last Samurai. And at one point his character was learning Japanese swordsmanship. He was surrounded by this crowd of villagers onlooking, laughing at what he was doing, and he was sparring against a guy who was beating the crap out of him. And so one of the villagers who was trying to be helpful kind of runs up and says, "Too many mind, no mind." And he's confused and he goes, "What do you mean?" And the villager continues and says, "Well, you mind yourself, you mind the opponent, you mind those around you. Too many mind, no mind." And this is rather telling, actually, because when you're learning something new, like swordsmanship, you're minding your posture, how you're swinging, what you're doing. So you're minding yourself a great deal. And then you're also facing off the opponent, and so you're minding them. What are they doing? What's their attack? You're minding your response. If he attacks like this, then I will do that. You're minding those around you, because as they heckle or support you, the ego is inflated or deflated. And so you're minding yourself, you're minding your opponent, you're minding those around you, you're minding. There's so much minding. And if you truly want to excel in a situation like Japanese swordsmanship, martial arts, no mind is the key. But no mind also means ceasing to think. Do not be thinking about all this stuff. And then some people will say, well, how do you cease thinking? Well, of course, you cannot cease thinking by fighting the mind. You can't go, I shouldn't be thinking. And so now you're minding the mind. Don't do that. You're just compounding the issue. And so when thought arises, let it arise, acknowledge it, but just let it go. Don't mind it. The easiest, and I think one of the best doorways to ceasing to think, of course, is instead being 100% devoted to the feeling, experiencing of now, the sensory awareness. Because when we're conscious and we have functioning ears, we hear. We can't choose not to hear. We hear regardless. If we're conscious and our eyes are open with functioning eyes, we see. We can't choose not to see what we saw. It's too late. We already saw it. And so there is this sensing that's coming to us. It's being receptive. It's not trying to force it. If you're just receptive to what you're feeling, there is so much to be aware of. There is the feeling of the weight of the body on the feet or on the butt, on the surface that's holding it. There is the feeling of the air that's entering through the nostrils, feeling it go down the windpipe, feeling the chest expand, maybe a diaphragm move. There's feeling the heartbeat in the chest or at the ear or at the neck or in the hands or wrist. You can feel your heartbeat. You can feel the heartbeat in the chest, but you can feel the pulse everywhere else. There is also, what do you hear? What do you see? What do you feel? If your eyes are open, what do you see? And the trick is being curious enough about what can be experienced, how much can be experienced. Because normally, when we look quite superficially. We look at and see a tree and label it as a tree and quit looking. Because we know what it is. And so we quit looking. And that's a real superficial looking at what you just saw. Because everything is absolutely unique. There is no two of anything. And so you have not even looked close enough or long enough to see what is unique about that tree. Or if the tree is, really, really healthy. Is there some tree limbs that are dead or dying? There's all this stuff that's going on with a tree. Was that seen? Now, the same applies with your own body. You can look more and more deeply, less superficially. And if you're curiously aware, openly receptive to what you can be aware of, there is far more data out there than is possible for the conscious mind to receive. The conscious mind only receives, a clipping of the awareness. And science has said the subconscious mind will get a bigger set of the experience. Because when you're hypnotized and you get the conscious mind out of the way, you can recall far more details about things that weren't consciously noticed on the conscious awareness. So it is possible to bring more awareness to the conscious awareness. It may drift a bit, but so be it. You're not trying to guide it anywhere. You're just being openly receptive. And there's so much to be aware of. It just kind of scans and moves a little bit. And this awareness just happens of itself. It's not deliberate. It's not willed. It's what Zen Master Bunkai called the unborn mind. In terms of it happens of itself. You're intending to hear me. But if you hear a bird call in the back, you hear that as well. You didn't intend to hear it, but you hear it. And that's the unborn mind. The unborn mind hears all without intending to hear anything. And so, with the senses, you're not trying to intend to particularly, see or hear anything in particular. You're just being openly receptive and allowing the unborn mind, so to speak, be aware of whatever it can be aware of. You're not particularly minding anything. Again, no mind. And so when you are really with the now, you are focused on the senses, tactily, the five, all the five senses and the feeling. That's the focus and the attention. Because, and what I mean by that is, you're not paying attention to thought. Thought is never about now. Thought can only be about past, future, or pure imaginations. Thinking about the past, thinking about the future, or just having daydreams and imaginations are distractions to what's going on right now through the senses. That's why if someone is deep in thought while they're walking down the street, they could bump into a lamp pole because they simply didn't see it. Their thoughts are a distraction from what's going on in the here and now. And so don't pay any mind to past, future, or imaginations. Just let them go. Now, of course, we have this built-up habit and conditioning that in a moment of silence, that this is the signal or the trigger for the mind to bring up things that we've been forgetting, should be doing, very enticing and seductive thoughts that pop up. And so when we are really with the now, 100% devoted to the experience, the sensing, and the mind starts to quiet, and this inner silence comes in, sometimes, due to the conditioning and programming, the mind will kick in with some very enticing and seductive thoughts going, oh yeah, you want to remember this, or hey, we should be doing this afterwards. And there's this, temptation to go, oh yeah, and grab onto it. Don't grab onto any thought. Don't entertain them. If a thought arises, no matter how seductive or valid or pertaining to what you want to do later, doesn't matter. It doesn't apply to now. And right now, the focus is on just 100% devotion to the experience of now, the feeling it, the sensory awareness. Nothing else matters. And so let all thought go. If thought arises, don't fight it, of course. You can acknowledge it, but just let it go and go, it doesn't apply to now, I don't care. And so what you're doing is you're trying to replace a conditioning, a programming of, in a moment of silence, please remind me of this kind of stuff. You're trying to replace that with, in a moment of silence, just let it be silent. I don't need to be reminded about anything, and I don't need to think about anything in a moment of silence. And so when this habitual programmed response ceases to occur, a very profound silence may happen. The mind ceases revolving. The revolutions of the mind cease. And there is a moment of, it could be more than a moment, but there's a period of time of no thought, a cessation of thought. And in that moment, there's no mind. For what we call a mind is just a stream of thought. And so when the stream of thought ceases, there's no mind. And so we've come back to no mind. And so you abide in that no mind, no thought, but fully aware, fully conscious of all that you can be aware of, all that's going on, both inside the body and out. But if you got any questions, comments, please post below. If you have not subscribed, I do recommend subscribing because you'll be notified of future videos and other things that way, automatically. But until next time, thank you much.